Peace and blessings to everybody in the building. Y'all already know the rules. When you come in my house, take off them shoes and super violate that like button. Living in the days and the times that we living in right now, listening to the things, the arguments of what we like, it's just amazing to see. Let's say JFK, for example, Jr., to see him argue. Now for him to be getting ready to get into office and for him to argue for the rights of the things that I've seen people on YouTube, because I've seen people on YouTube lose their platform, lose their money, lose their platform, and get booted and exiled off of YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram for telling what is now considered to be the truth. Now that the people that's in office, that we voted and elected in office under the Trump administration, the truth is coming out. I've been talking about it. Others been talking about the fluoride in the water. And you know what happened? Your videos get demonetized. Shall we begin? So many things I want to talk about, but I'm going to let these topics speak for themselves.
We are confronting a chilling reality, I think, in the United States. You know, yesterday, when we were covering this, or at least the buildup of this, someone left a comment here on our channel that said, I don't think 90% of the people in the United States understand how severely bad this is for the United States right now. I think you're absolutely right about that. I think most people are just kind of living their lives. They don't realize what these masterminds, these warmongers, these criminals are doing right now in Washington, D.C., leading us into war, the very real possibility that the world is inching closer to nuclear war at this hour. This is not hyperbole or fear-mongering. The fact is, it starts with a stark warning tonight from Russia. A few hours ago, sirens blaring all over Ukraine. Russian strikes coming and people preparing for massive strikes, air raid sirens sounding across Ukraine, including in the capital city. Massive Russian strikes coming. Russia is preparing massive strikes across the entire country. They've already struck, as Colonel McGregor told us yesterday, the western part of the country, knocking out all sorts of electricity grids and power supplies. So we want a cold winter? Because this is about to happen. And the United States doesn't give a rat's ass about the people of Ukraine at all, full stop. And these people are going to freeze to death this winter, thanks to Antony Blinken, thanks to Jake Sullivan, thanks to the demented President Biden, who's basically conceded power to the deep state in Washington, D.C. And State Department officials today are getting rid of the embassy, are closing the embassy, in the United States Embassy, saying, quote, out of an abundance of caution, the embassy will be closed, and embassy employees are being instructed to shelter in place. That's going to work, sheltering in place. When these massive missiles start coming in, sheltering in place, you're going to be fine there inside the embassy. Meanwhile, Russia is preparing for nuclear war, folks. Like, they're not taking this lightly. We are in the United States. People are just still going to Target and living their day, which is fine. Like, live your life and work your jobs, but make demands of your government to stop this madness. So Russia has started mass producing mobile nuclear bunkers capable of housing dozens and protecting against shockwaves and radiation. So, and as we speak.
Let me stop right there. So Russia is preparing for nuclear war, building doomsday bunkers for the citizens, not for the people in power, for the citizens. I don't want to talk too much. I'm gonna let this right here speak for itself.
Planning to move citizens into underground nuclear bunkers that they've already built. Let that sink in for a second. Thanks to warmongers in D.C., the Russian government is taking active measures right now to safeguard its people against what it perceives to be an imminent threat of nuclear escalation. Protecting its people. Russia has now begun mass producing mobile nuclear bomb shelters that can protect against shockwaves and radiation from a nuclear blast. Take a look.
We got any of those?
Do we have any of those? I haven't seen any in the United States. Think about this for a second. Why would a global superpower with decades of military strategy and intelligence take such drastic action unless, of course, they believe this threat was real? They're not just doing this for...
This is the real deal, people. I don't know what part y'all don't understand. I don't know what got us as a people. Well, I do know what got us distracted, but this is the real deal. It's time to wake up. Because the reality of it is that if we don't do something or attempt to do something to stop with Biden, Kamala Harris, and the deep state, and my son, and Tamika Mallory, and Until Freedom, and Beyonce, and all these celebrities that push for this, because they was a part of it. If we don't stop this, the world as we know it tomorrow will end for a lot of our family members.
But shits and giggles?
I don't like that saying.
That's what my dad used to say from Baltimore. I'm going to do this for shits and giggles. But here's the part that should concern you even more. This isn't happening in a vacuum, folks. The warmongers in D.C. are playing a direct role in escalating tensions right now with reckless abandon. Overnight, the Biden administration doubled down on this plan on Ukraine using long-range weapons to attack deep inside of Russia. This morning, the Biden administration announced a new round of money being sent into Ukraine. Another $275 million for a new funded weapons package being sent to Ukraine. And of course, we know, because Antony Blinken told us a few days ago, that they are going to do everything in their power to get all of this money that they can into Ukraine before Donald Trump assumes office on January 20th. So it's an addiction.
He said every available dollar, and I just was wondering where those were during the hurricanes.
Yeah.
And during the crime waves we've been having, and I don't know, Maui. You're just like, I didn't know there were available dollars.
Oh, there's all
that's news to me.
Well, see, there's available dollars when you fake print them, like the Federal Reserve does in the United States, and we fake print money to support all of these foreign wars because it's an addiction.
Why couldn't we fake print them for our people?
We do. We fake print money for stimulus packages, and then we have a massive inflationary period, and we have an economy in the toilet, right? So that's it. When you print money like this, that's exactly the ruin you cause, right? So it's an addiction. It lines the pockets of these defense contractors, fuels a bloated military industrial complex, and drags the American people closer to catastrophe. Who's running the show there? As Spirit Walker says, the American people are being dragged into this kicking and screaming. Americans voted overwhelmingly against this. They voted for Trump against this, who warned, and by the way, he was mocked. I don't know, you remember that ABC debate?
Oh,
when
yes.
he was the one that brought up nuclear war, and Kamala Harris is like laughing.
Yeah.
She's like, how dare you talk about nuclear war? And Trump's like, I've been president before. I know what this looks like. We are getting dangerously close to nuclear war, and ABC and Kamala Harris mocked him for it.
Right. Yes.
So just so you understand, Russia is fast-tracking the development of underground nuclear bunkers to protect its people. Democrats in Washington are doing the exact opposite. They're sending billions of taxpayer dollars overseas to fuel wars that most Americans neither support nor understand. We have zero infrastructure in the United States that could save lives in a critical crisis like this. No fallout shelters, no contingency if Russia, fires missiles into Nashville, Los Angeles, Buffalo, New York City, Los Angeles. Do you guys know where your fallout shelters are? Where you'll be taken care of? Where food?
Good question. Do you guys know where the fallout shelters are? Do y'all have any clue when those missiles go up in the air? We ain't talking about regular missiles. That dude talking about nuclear war. When those missiles go up in the air, do you have any idea of where to run to? These are just questions we need to ask ourselves and figure out our own answers, because everybody's answer is not the same.
Replies will be, no, you don't. Voters voted overwhelmingly for Trump to stop these wars. Meanwhile, back home, our economy is faltering. Even Hillary Clinton today came out and said that Democrats should stop lying to the American people about the economy. They should tell the truth about the economy.
Who woke her up?
Right. I mean, like, what? Where were you a few weeks ago? So you were literally out there championing Kamala Harris. So now you're telling Democrats to talk about the economy?
Literally, their talking point on the campaign was things are better. The jobs numbers are up because they're government jobs. And inflation rate has fallen, although it was increased in October. They didn't have those numbers on the campaign, so they didn't have to talk about it. So they were literally gaslighting to say, you think the economy is bad, but you're wrong, honey. It's not. It's fine.
And
yeah, you're
like
fine.
she's got the AOC problem. Like, was there no point she could have said this prior to the election? Like,
Right.
How do you respect a government that doesn't respect you? How do you respect a government that lies to you?
Was there a gag order?
And stop blaming
so
Trump.
Disingenuous.
And they want to blame Trump for all their problems in the world. No, you need to blame your own party for all the problems right now in the United States. Don't blame Trump. Trump won because you guys suck. Trump won because maybe they don't really like Trump, whatever. They know that their lives suck right now. They know that they can't pay the bills right now. Anyway, our economy's in ruins. The people are struggling to pay their bills. The basic infrastructure that could save lives in a crisis like this, like fallout shelters or anything like that, is non-existent in the United States. We've got some old 1950s bunkers hidden around town where occasionally you'll see a fallout sign, but those things are now turned into like Rotary clubs, Kiwanis clubs and stuff like that. Not up to par for modern thermonuclear war. The bombs that we're now having that we use today, drastically different than they were in the 1940s and 1950s. The government has no plan for us, but Russia is preparing. And also the Biden administration is now violating once again another one of his own policies and okays anti-personnel mines for Ukraine. This happened earlier this morning. So what in the world is happening? Who is running things in the executive branch? All of these things Biden was explicit about, that we will not allow this. We will not allow pedal mines. We absolutely don't want this. This violates international norms. These pedal mines, which Ukraine uses and launches into ethnic Russian areas, like in the Donbass, and little kids go into the park thinking that they're leaves or a toy, and they pick them up and their arms are blown off or killed. Like Ava Bartlett, one of the greatest journalists in the world, has firsthand covered this, and we featured that on our show 2 years ago. And now Biden's okay with this?
These are marked as international crimes,
yes,
by the international bodies of war. They are supposed to not be allowed. We kind of agreed to them, but okay.
And
today something's
their
different.
Their justification for it is, well, modern mines they don't last for they don't stay active for decades like old mines used to. So they're not as lethal over time. That's their excuse.
I mean, just look on this map. Can you go back to that last image, the one before the pedal mine there, Philip? Yeah, that one. You can see the contested area, right? This is the area that voted overwhelmingly in red to become part of Russia, right? That is Donetsk, of course, and the Donbass down into Crimea. That area, look how heavily mined that is. I mean, these are areas which Ukraine is already among the world's most mined countries in the world, according to Human Rights Watch. Mines cover 30% of this area. 30%. And now you want to add this into the mix? Something that violates his own norms. Tucker Carlson today tweeted this just a few hours ago, said the prayers of good people got Donald Trump elected 2 weeks ago. Wars with Russia and Iran are the counterattack. Let that sink in for a second. So what I
don't know if all of y'all could understand what he's saying and comprehend what he's saying or what he just said. It was being said over and over and over again, is that everything that the American people voted for, the reason why we put Trump into office, they're pushing to start World War III before Trump gets into office. They're pushing to start World War III, which already initially started, but we're going to get to that. We can wake up tomorrow with half the population of America gone. Now, I don't know what that means to you. Some of y'all still have your mother. I don't. Some of y'all still have your grandmother. I don't. Some of y'all, just like me, have family that live in different states to go to sleep after a Mike Tyson fight and to wake up, you think you getting ready to celebrate Christmas and Thanksgiving? There's a timeline of destruction. The wick has been lit to the dynamite. And we on borrowed time. The sad thing about this election, what this election showed us, is that the truth of the matter is that in the black community, if that's what you want to call us, I hate that word, black. I hate it, because that's not what we are. But what represents us is the industry, whether it be the music industry or be acting. You know, the industry where we cherish and respect people like Denzel Washington. And even with Denzel on damn near on his deathbed, in his 60s now, he had to go through the humiliation ritual of kissing a man. Which shows you, in this world, when they elevate you, they'll destroy you. So as the round table has people all over the world in power sitting down at the round table, at those meetings, at those tables, there is nobody that represents us. All we have is this little itty bitty internet that they gave us. But when the power goes out and everything goes back to the street, well, just remember, I told y'all when the first set of gangbangers hit the internet, the first set of gangbangers, no disrespect to them, you seen Mel Cross come up there, you seen Killer Kev come up there, you seen CK come up there. You started seeing the first line of Bloods come up there. Not all, but some of them niggas is CIA and FBI. I didn't name all of them. And the ones I didn't name, don't take offense like I'm saying it's you, but some of these niggas is. And some of these dudes that's getting these time cuts, that's coming back in the street, they're coming back in the streets just in time for civil unrest. They're coming back in the streets just in time for World War III. You don't think that they planted plants inside the hood just in case somebody's smart enough to elevate and rise up? You think they didn't put somebody in power? They didn't already put their plants there to take position on a battlefield called the Bronx, called Brooklyn, called Queens, called Manhattan?
Things more than
I want y'all to pay good attention to what I'm about to play to y'all. I want y'all to listen. I want y'all to listen. You know, I want y'all to understand too, right? Taking all this stuff in, it breaks down the body. It stresses you. My blood pressure been going stupid. Stressing for my people. Don't never let a person tell you, oh, what have you done? Nigga, my voice, it's not enough. And if the super chat ain't working, my cash app is $ Hassan Campbell. Make sure y'all sponsor this war.
Sitting here with my father, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Sounds like a shakedown, doesn't it, Director?
I'm not going to get into commenting on that.
You seem deeply uncurious about it, don't you? Almost suspiciously uncurious. Are you protecting the Bidens?
Absolutely not. The FBI
Well, you
does
won't
not,
answer the
has
question.
no
Hold on.
interest in
You won't answer the
protecting
question
anyone
about whether or not
politically.
that's a shakedown, and everybody knows why you won't answer it. Because to the millions of people who will see this, they know it is. And your inability to acknowledge that is deeply revealing about you. But let's go from the uncurious to the downright nosy. How many illegal FISA queries have occurred under your leadership of the FBI?
Well, there are reports that have come out with different numbers about compliance incidents.
More than 1 million illegal ones? Because that's what the Inspector General said. The Inspector General said that in the 3.4 million of these queries, more than 1 million were in error. Do you have any basis to disagree with that assessment by the Inspector General?
I'm not sure actually that's a correct characterization of the Inspector General's findings on that.
The internet will remind you of that in moments. But let's now go to what the court said. The court said it was over 200,000 that have occurred on your watch. Do you have any basis to disagree with that assessment?
Again, I don't have the numbers as I sit here right now. What I can
Seems like a number you should know. How many times the FBI is breaking the law under your watch? Especially if it's like over 1 million. To not know that number, and I'm worried about your veracity on the subject as well. Play the video.
Do you hear how he talking to the director of the FBI? How many times the FBI broke the law? Again, as American people, how do they expect us to abide by the law when they not abiding by the law? How you gonna tell me to play by the rules and you're not playing by the rules? That's just if I'm playing Scrabble and you playing Scrabble, and every time it's my time to go, I dig into the bag and I'm stealing letters out of the bag to make a 7-letter word, you're never going to beat me. The game is rigged. The rule of the game is there is no rules. Just make sure if you break the rules, you don't get caught. Because when they get caught, this is what they do. Get chastised like little children.
Letters for
You going to the
investigation
FISA
of
court?
the Capitol.
Or you
I don't
going-
believe FISA is remotely implicated in our investigation.
So there, Senator Lee's asking you whether or not FISA was in any way involved in your January 6th investigation, and you say no. Was that truthful?
I said that I did not believe it was.
Okay, so now let's pull up what the court said, which was something a little different than what you said. So here, no, that's not the right one. Yeah, here we go, right there. It says, the government has reported additional significant violations of the querying standard, including several relating to the January 6, 2021 breach of the Capitol. So I guess the question, Director Wray, is, did you not know when you were answering these questions that the FBI was engaging in these illegal searches, or did you perjure yourself to Senator Lee?
I certainly didn't perjure myself. At the time that I testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, I didn't have that piece of information. I will add...
Well, that was a court order. You didn't have that piece of information because the court hadn't yet rendered a judgment. Did you not know when you gave the untruthful answer before Senator Lee that this was going on?
It was a truthful answer. I did not believe FISA had been involved in January 6th.
But it was. So you didn't... The answer is the FBI has broken so bad that people can go and engage in queries that when you come before the Congress to answer questions, you're like blissfully ignorant. You're blissfully ignorant as to the unlawful queries. You're blissfully ignorant as to the Biden shakedown regime. And it just seems like it gets into a kind of a creepy place as well. Go to our next image on what the court said. Like, just so the American people realize, the court has smacked you down, ruling FBI personnel apparently conducted queries for improper personal reasons. People were looking themselves up. They were looking their ex-lovers up. Who has been held accountable or fired as a consequence of the FBI using the FISA process as their like creepy personal snoop machine?
There have been instances in...
Who? Scooby-Doo? Are y'all hearing what I'm hearing?
Individuals have had disciplinary action and they were
Name
no
it.
longer with it. I can't get into it here, but we can follow back up
But
with
don't you see that that's kind of the thing, Director Wray, that you preside over the FBI that has the lowest level of trust in the FBI's history.
Huh?
People trusted the FBI more when J. Edgar Hoover was running the place than when you are. And the reason is because you don't give straight answers. You give answers that later a court deems aren't true. And then at the end of the day, you won't criticize an obvious shakedown when it's directly in front of us. And it appears as though you're whitewashing the conduct of corrupt people.
Respectfully, Congressman, in your home state of Florida, the number of people applying to come work for us and devote their lives working for us is over 100%.
We're deeply proud of them, and they deserve better than you.
And Director, what's the difference between a traditional Catholic?
They deserve better than you. This shit right here, I don't need to talk. Y'all just need to listen.
Radical traditional Catholic?
I'm not an expert on the Catholic orders.
Well, your FBI wrote a memo talking about radical traditional Catholics. I'm just wondering if you could define it for us.
Well, what I can tell you is you're referring to the Richmond product, which was a single product by a single field office, which as soon as I found out about it, I was aghast and ordered it withdrawn and removed from FBI systems.
You were aghast, then why won't you let us talk to the people who put it together?
We are working on finishing an internal review into what happened.
We have to wait. We, the Congress, and the American people have to wait until you do an internal review. It's not a criminal investigation going on here. An internal review before we can talk to the people who wrote this.
When we finish our internal review, which will be very soon, we will come back before the committee
in America?
and provide a briefing on what we found.
Well, we appreciate the briefing. We want to talk to the people who wrote it. Any idea how many Catholics there are in America, Director?
No, sir.
There's a lot, over 60 million. What percentage of those are radical traditional Catholics, according to the Richmond Field Office of the FBI?
Again, that product is not something that I will defend or excuse. It's something that I thought was appalling and removed it.
Let's read from that product, page 4 of that product. By the way, the copy you gave us, when can we get a copy that didn't have all these redactions on it? So we can actually see what the American taxpayers were paying for to see their rights, their First Amendment religious liberty rights attacked. Let me just read from page 4. Provide new opportunities to mitigate extremist threat through outreach to traditional Catholic parishes and the development of sources with the placement and access to report on places of worship. That's pretty fancy language for they're trying to put informants in the parish, in the church. That's what this memorandum said, Director, from one of your field offices. And you won't let us talk to the people who did it.
So the FBI put informants in the church. Heal up, reel up, bring it back, come, rewind. So the FBI put informants in the church. Y'all hit the like button.
Any response to that?
I didn't know. I was waiting for the question.
No, priest. Do you think priests should be informants inside the church, Director?
We do not recruit, open, or operate confidential human sources to infiltrate, target, report.
But that's not what this said. It sounds like you were trying to do it in Richmond, Virginia.
No, sir. No,
you
sir.
weren't? This didn't happen? You can assure us that this didn't happen?
That product did not, to as best as we can tell, result in any investigative action as a result of it. None.
You know what the motivation for this was? Why would they even think about doing this? You know what the motivation was?
Well, again, I think that's what our internal review will find, and I'd rather wait until I hear what the results of that internal.
Well, I don't need an internal review. I can read the document.
Ooh.
I assume you can do the same. As it says right there on the same page. Richmond assesses extremist interest in radical traditional Catholics is likely to increase over the next 12 to 24 months in the run-up to the next general election. Same paragraph. Events in which extremists and radical traditional Catholics might have common cause include legislation, judicial decisions in such areas as abortion rights, immigration, affirmative action, and LGBTQ protections. It's politics. That's the motivation. In the run-up to the next election, and they talk about the border, affirmative action, and abortion rights. It's total politics. I mean, I think it's interesting that we just got a decision from a bunch of Catholics who sit on the United States Supreme Court relative to affirmative action. Politics was the total motivation here, and that's what's scary. That's what's, I think, so frightening, and how this happens, I don't know. And 5 people signed off on it. 5 people, including the Chief Division Counsel at the Richmond Field Office. I'd like to talk to this lawyer. And a lot of people in this room went to law school, get a course on the Constitution, talks about the First Amendment. I find that really scary. Again, when do you think we're going to have a chance? How soon are you going to complete this internal investigation so we can talk to these folks who put this together?
I expect us to be able to brief the committee on our internal review later this summer.
Will that briefing include the names of the individuals who put this document together attacking Americans' First Amendment liberty?
I'm not sure yet what it'll include because it's not done yet, but when it is, we'll provide you with an appropriate briefing.
What are you doing to fix it so this doesn't happen again?
Well, we've already started putting in place a number of fixes, and those will be further informed by the results of the review.
What are those fixes? More training, more things, more. It's that same thing you told us on FISA. And while you may have some improvement, you still got 204,000 times the database was illegally searched. So what are the training and procedures you're putting in place?
Well, I'll put the FISA stuff to the side.
I'm just using that as an example of where you've told us the same thing, you fixed something and you haven't.
I do not believe the number that you just invoked on the FISA side is since the reforms, the fixes, as you called them.
Can we get an unredacted?
Those post-date the numbers that you're referring to.
Director, can we get an unredacted copy while you're still doing this internal investigation? Can we at least get an unredacted copy of this memorandum?
I will find out if there's more of the document that can be shared with you. We've tried to be very careful in what we redact, and there's always a basis for it. So let me go back and see if there's more that we can provide. But I know my instructions are to be as...
Yo, do y'all see the lady in the background cracking up? She is cracking up. I don't think y'all realize, some of y'all might not realize how deep this is.
Sparing as possible in the redactions that we provide.
Gentleman from Cal Chair now recognizes the gentleman for Texas for 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I will say this, Mr. Ray, I'm one of those sheriffs that will be very blunt with you today. That's right here. I've had an opportunity to look at your testimony, lots of stuff, and hear about numerous task forces, crimes being committed against children, including even infants and toddlers. MS-13 gang members coming across the open southern border, the poisoning and killing of the American people with fentanyl, the sex trafficking, the human trafficking. It's quite clear. It is clear that you guys are dealing with some of the sickest bastards in our society. I have an article here from CNN in January 2022 calling the January 6th investigation the biggest investigation in FBI history. And what shocks me about this, quite honestly, is that you don't mention January 6th. Again, the biggest investigation, not one time in your 14-page testimony. You don't mention it one time. And that makes me ask myself the question, what the hell are you hiding?
Wow.
Sir, you mentioned 38,000 agents and support personnel in your agency. How many FBI agents and support personnel had you assigned to the January 6th investigation?
I don't know that I know the number. I know we have a lot of people working on it in multiple fields.
Fair enough, lots. Yeah. Knowing that you are dealing with some of the sickest people in our society with investigations related to child sex trafficking, have you reassigned any of these agents or personnel to investigate January 6th? Yes or no?
I don't believe we have reassigned people away from child exploitation to January 6th.
Let me just say this, Director. I find that answer disturbing because last month, Steve Friend, he testified before the Weaponization Committee. Mr. Friend was a domestic terrorism investigator for you, and he was told by one of his superiors that January 6th was, I quote, a higher priority than pursuing child pornography cases, end quote. And for those of you watching in America, understand today's FBI is more concerned about searching for and arresting grandma and grandpa for entering the Capitol building that day than pursuing the sick individuals in our society who prey on our children. And Mr. Ray, your priorities are flawed. But let's rehash what we know so far, all right? It's the largest investigation in FBI history, and you don't mention it in your testimony. Agents have been reassigned from child exploitation cases and so on. So now let's get into the money. Mr. Ray, how much taxpayer money has been spent on January 6th?
I don't know that I have the figure.
Oh, you don't have it?
In my
Okay,
head,
fine.
but...
Mr. Ray, I got an article here, December 22, 2022, 2 years after the events of January 6th, and it says the Justice Department has requested another $34 million from Congress. And number one, you shouldn't get another dime. The FBI shouldn't get another dime for this political witch hunt against the greatest president in my lifetime, Donald J. Trump. I want to turn my attention now to this fella, this character, Mr. Ray Epps. We've all heard of him. We've heard of Mr. Ray Epps. He was number 16 on your FBI most wanted list. He was encouraging people the night prior and the day of to go into the Capitol. And Mr. Ray Epps can be seen at the first breach of Capitol grounds at approximately 12:50 p.m. Play the clip, please.
We need to go into the Capitol.
Into the Capitol.
Into the Capitol. What? We are going to the Capitol, where our problems are. It's that direction. Please spread the word. All right, noted. But one more thing.
Yeah, so can we go up there? No?
When we go in,
Are we going to get arrested if we go up there?
you don't need to get shot.
Arrest us.
There he is, breaching the line, going in at the first breach into the Capitol grounds, a restricted area. Mr. Ray, you have arrested hundreds of people related to January 6th. And there have been people arrested for breaching Capitol grounds. Cooey Griffin is an example. Rachel Genko is an example. And then we go to Mr. Brandon Strecka. Brandon was arrested for disorderly and destructive conduct, which included yelling, I quote, "Go, go, go," as rioters tried to empty the Capitol. These three never went into the Capitol. They never assaulted anyone. So let's be honest with each other. There is very little difference between the actions of Ray Epps and Brandon Strecka that day, but yet Strecka was arrested and Epps wasn't. Epps also testified to the January 6th committee. He was back at his hotel when video evidence showed that he wasn't. He lied. He was on the Capitol grounds just as Brandon Strecka was. Epps even texted his nephew at 2:12 p.m. and said, I quote, "I was in the front with a few others. It was on the video. I also orchestrated it." Now look into the camera, sir, when you answer my next question.
Ooh.
Are you going to arrest Mr. Epps?
Ooh.
Yes or no?
I'm not going to engage here in a discussion about individual people who are or are not
Here we
going to
go.
be
Can I
prosecuted.
get a commitment? You just watched the video. I'm an old law dog. I understand a little bit about probable cause. He did very little. There was very little difference what he did and Mr. Strecka. You can see him. He's encouraging. I almost think he's inciting a riot. He's encouraging people the night prior to go into the Capitol. The day of, go into the Capitol. And he was at the first breach. And he breached the restricted area. Everybody, a lot of people getting arrested for not going into the Capitol, but they're in the restricted area. But yet, Ray Epps, who many people feel, fed, right? And there's a lot of clout over this. So my point is this. You arrested a lot of folks for unlawful activity. You just saw the video. And I will tell you, Mr. Ray, if you don't arrest Mr. Epps, there's a reason behind it. I believe you know what it is. And it appears to me you are protecting this guy. I strongly recommend you get your house back in order. With that, I yield back.